I want everyone to imagine a hotel room. It's a beautiful wood-paneled hotel room. It's got dark metal furnishings, low light, a little bit like this actually. And in the middle of the main wall is a huge rectangular window. And through the window you can see the Dolomites of Italy. Yeah, one of the most beautiful snow-capped mountain ranges you could ever hope to see, let alone from your hotel bedroom window. And I was sitting on my bed, looking at the most beautiful view you could ever hope to see, hearing the worst news an athlete could ever hear. I'm so sorry, but you're going home. I'd just been told I wouldn't be continuing on the racing season. I'd just had the realization that I wasn't going to the Olympics. The third time I'd had that realization, the third time something had stood between myself and my dreams. I was absolutely crushed. My world completely crumbled in front of me, and I immediately knew I was just gonna have to start again. My name is Ashleigh Werner. I've been an athlete my whole life. I work in management consulting. I love traveling and I like long walks on the beach. Actually, that is a lie. I hate long walks. I like short walks because my calves burn. I'm a power athlete. I don't really do any endurance. But specifically, for the past 10 years, I have been an elite or professional athlete. I accidentally made the Australian women's bobsled team, where I competed for the next 6 years as both a brakeman and then a driver. And I took a little break and I accidentally made an NRLW team, where I relocated to Brisbane and played for the next 2 years, until a setback set me on the course to accidentally make the bobsled team one more time for another 2 years. And in that time, I have missed out on 3 Olympics that I was part of qualifying for, which probably is a record. And that setback was actually an injury so severe that a specialist told me if I didn't rehab it correctly, I might not run again. And unfortunately, I consider myself a connoisseur of new beginnings, not by choice, but by necessity. Now, that moment in Italy was 7 months ago, and I have thought about it a lot since then, mostly trying to untangle my grief from my identity. And, in the past, when I hadn't made an Olympic team, I had come back home to Australia, gone back to work, gone back to training, and I had started those new versions of myself. But this time, I decided I needed something a little bit different. So I stayed in Europe, and I traveled for a couple of months, hoping to find a version of myself I seemed to have lost along the way. It's kind of funny because I've done this so many times, but I honestly never thought that starting again was a skill until I started writing this. And I realized that what I'd done in that moment in Italy and shortly after was actually a cycle that I'd been repeating over and over again. And it was a cycle that had actually saved me over and over again. So today, I want to share 3 things that I have learnt the hard way from the life of an elite athlete to help you embrace new beginnings. Because every single person is going to experience these in their lives, and I want to empower you to do it from a place of hope and excitement. So, lesson number 1. The first thing I learnt, and probably the one that I resisted the most, is that you cannot embrace a new beginning while you're still running away from an ending. Endings are really challenging. It does not matter who you are, doesn't matter if you chose it or if it chose you. Acknowledging that something in your life isn't there anymore, or maybe doesn't serve the same function, is really hard. Every single decision that you have made in your life makes you the person that you are today, and your brain tries to justify and preserve that. It wants to hold on to that and tell you that you're right. I want to take you back 4 years ago. I had just come home after missing out on Beijing, and lo and behold, had to start again. And honestly, I had no idea what I was going to do with my life. I went back to work, I went back to training, and I just had this sickening realization that continuing on as a bobsled driver was just not going to be a financial possibility. See, I was a self-funded athlete, and with no structured support, I just could not do another 4 years the way that I wanted to. I knew it in here, but I just could not say the words out loud. Out of the blue, a family friend gave me a call and said, "Hey, you used to play rugby union. Have you considered rugby league? You know, rugby league's really picking up for women in Australia, and there's a team around the corner from you that is expecting a phone call. And he texted me the number I needed to call. I looked at that phone number every hour on the hour for the next 5 days straight, and I could not make that phone call. I felt like I was cheating on bobsled with rugby. It was a really weird feeling. And in that time, I spoke to my family and friends, and I had 2 realizations. The first was that they actually all told me the exact same thing, which was, if you never try, you will never know. And what if it's better than you imagine? Honestly, I'd obviously been a little bit scared, but they were right. And the second thing that I realized was that I was incredibly bored. I'm a really goal-orientated person, and I was fine training and working towards a goal, but if I didn't have anything to work towards, I struggled to motivate myself. I just could not give that extra 2% that I needed to. And so, with my family and friends' encouragement pulling me, and then my boredom kind of like pushing me, kicking me, I finally worked up the courage to make the phone call and introduce myself. And the first question he asked me was, "So are you done with bobsled?" And you know, that is a totally fair question for a coach who's looking to sign me to ask. But to me, it was the question. It was the question about my identity. It was the question that I had been crying over every single day for the past few months. He was asking me to say out loud that I was done with bobsled. Maybe that it was done with me was a little bit more accurate. He was asking me to say that I was never going to go to an Olympic Games. And without even thinking, I said, yep. And he said, great, bring your boots, I'll see you on Monday. And that was it. That was my ending. That was my big ending to the sport that I had dedicated every single moment of my life to for the last 6 years. Honestly, my whole life to. In a phone call that lasted 46 seconds, I'd effectively ended one career and walked straight into another one. I still needed to buy footy boots, but that was like a future Ashleigh problem, honestly. And it's funny because when I think about that moment, I remember so vividly how good I felt as soon as I said yep. It was like this weight lifted off my shoulders. And honestly, I had not realized how anxious or stuck I had been. You know, I'd been waking up every day heavy with the weight of unsaid conversations and unresolved expectations, half committed to moving forward and half committed to trying to make it work. And as soon as I said, yep, all of a sudden the fog started to clear and I could begin to make my way forward one step at a time. The thing I realized during that process was that you do not have to be happy, fine, or even remotely okay with acknowledging that a time in your life is ending. But the understanding of that was important to me, that will always be important to me. But now I get to choose what I do next has genuinely been the most life-changing thing. Embrace the ending to make space for the new beginning. Lesson number 2. Here's the thing I noticed, and I feel like once I say this, you will realize this as well. When an ending happens, the story we tell ourselves is almost always of what we've lost, but very rarely about what we did, how we handled it, and what we're now free to have. So once you've embraced the ending, well, now you get to choose the story you tell yourself about how that ending came to be. And the story you choose can determine everything about how you step into that next chapter. Once I left the team in November, I received a message from a girl on tour. We weren't particularly good friends, but we'd always been friendly. We'd been in the same sport for almost 10 years. And she said to me, "I know all of the feelings you have to face to give it another go, and it's really freaking cool you did the thing." And this one sentence changed the entire way I looked at my journey and my career. Because here I was, cursing my weakness and my inability to do the thing that I had set out to do. And then here was someone that didn't owe me anything, praising my courage for even putting myself in a position to do the thing that I'd wanted to do. And it wasn't until I got back to Australia and went back to work that this realization came full circle for me. I was sitting in a meeting at work, And a director at my company said to me, "Oh, Ashleigh, did I hear correctly? Were you just at the Winter Olympics?" And I said, "Not quite. I tried, but unfortunately I didn't make it." And he said, "Oh, I'm so sorry. Was that your first time trying to make an Olympic team?" And I said, "No, it was actually my third." You know what they say, third time lucky or 3 strikes and you're out. And he said, "Oh, wow. So you've been at an Olympic level for over 10 years? That seems incredibly rare. How have you managed 2 successful careers in that time?" And I was absolutely shook, because not only had he called me successful at anything, and I had spent the last 10 years thinking I had failed at everything, but it also complimented my time management skills, which historically had not been my strongest suit. But the thing I realized is that none of us were wrong. Yeah, I had missed out on 3 Olympic Games, but I had also had the courage to come back and try again. And yeah, I did have amazing time management skills. And yeah, I had also been at an Olympic level for over 10 years, which is quite rare. All of us had the exact same information and came to completely different outcomes. And I realized that the story that I'd been telling myself about what happened in November, and subsequently the story I'd been telling myself about what had happened every time before that, was actually my perception of the events, not the reality. And in fact, if I could choose the perception, why did I keep choosing one that was punishing myself over and over again? Now, when I talk about this lesson, I don't mean choose any story you have to tell yourself about how that ending happened. It's not about running away from accountability. But it is about acknowledging that the facts and the meaning are 2 different things. The facts are fixed, but the meaning is yours to choose. And the meaning you choose can determine everything about how you step into that next chapter. Examples can include, my relationship didn't work out, I'm really sad, no one's ever gonna love me. Or, my relationship didn't work out, I'm really sad, but I know what I'm looking for the next time. I didn't get the marks I wanted to on that test, I'm not smart enough. Or, I didn't get the marks I wanted to on that test, but I know where I went wrong and I can study better for next time. I didn't make the Olympics, I'm not good enough. Or, I didn't make the Olympics, but I gave it everything I had, I outperformed my own expectations, and I'm so proud of myself. And who knows, maybe one day I'll get to give a TED talk on what I've learned. Thank you. The facts are fixed, but that meaning is yours to choose. It is so much easier to start a new beginning from a place of hope and excitement than from a place of punishment. Lesson number 2. Lesson number 3. Once you've embraced the beginning, and then you've chosen the story that you want to tell yourself about who you're going to be in the next chapter, well, there's only one thing left to do. Start. Sounds the easiest, usually it's the hardest, but the most common misconception is that you have to have a plan to start. You absolutely do not. All you have to do is take one step in any general direction and let the path reveal itself. I want to take you back one more time. 10 years ago, I was playing rugby union and I'd just gone through a breakup. I promise it's important for the story. And a friend called me and said, "Hey, you're newly single, so you have no plans for the weekend. Want to come do some extra training?" And I said, "How dare you? I am really important. I have lots of friends, and I'm really, really busy. And secondly, what time, and can you pick me up?" And a couple of days later, she rocked up to my house to take me to test data sets for the Australian women's bobsled team. I didn't even know we had a team. I was not a winter person. I had never considered a winter sport. I mean, Cool Runnings was obviously my favorite movie. And if you haven't seen Cool Runnings, you have to go home over the weekend and watch it because it is a cinematic masterpiece. But I had never considered a winter sport. And it turned out I didn't need to, because I was just there to test data, which essentially means we were helping them by helping them figure out what was going to be the national standards for the people who were then actually going to test. So think of it like helping them set an ATAR for physical standards for the bobsled team. I did the lifting, I did the running, and at the end of the weekend, the head of the federation came up to me and shook my hand and said, "Hey, congratulations, we're really impressed. You've made the team." And I said, what team? And he said, the Australian team, these were national trials, and he handed me a t-shirt. And at that point in my life, after my breakup, I obviously had two options. The first was I could, dye my hair blonde and cut bangs and start that new version of my life. Or I could change sports, leave the country, and try to chase an Olympics and start that new version of my life. I left for Canada 3 weeks later. Just kidding. No, I did leave for Canada, but I was, and always have been, a brunette, despite trying. But you know what? This was not the first time that I'd had to start again, and it was definitely not going to be the last. A few weeks after this photo was taken, I was in a crash, broke both my shoulders, had to start again. And a few years after this photo was taken, that setback while I was playing up in Brisbane was an injury so severe that set me on the sideline for an entire year. I didn't think about rugby, I didn't think about bobsled, I just thought about, can I walk today? And then a couple of months later, can I run today? And then a couple of months after that, could I be stronger and faster than I was before? And that day-at-a-time mentality took me to the start line in bobsled, once again in the form of another new beginning. You do not have to have a plan. You just have to take one step in any general direction and let the path reveal itself. Lesson number 3. It's funny, as I'm saying this, I realize I always talk about my journey and I say I accidentally made the bobsled team or I accidentally made an NRLW team. That my life is this happy set of accidents that just seemed to work out. To me, didn't work out. But when I think about it, maybe it's just because I'm telling myself the wrong story. I'm telling myself, I wasn't good enough for the thing I wanted, so I had to pivot. But when I think about my journey through this framework, it doesn't actually seem so accidental. It seems like someone that kept embracing whatever life threw at her, who kept telling herself that she was going to be good enough for the next thing that came her way, and then just kept walking in a direction and trusting what was in front of her. Embrace the ending to make space for the new beginning. Choose the story you want to tell yourself about what happened and who you're going to be in that next one. Take one small step in any direction and let the path reveal itself. 3 things I have learned the incredibly hard way that have given me one of the most ridiculous, amazing, unpredictable, crazy lives that I never ever could have imagined when I was in your shoes. I still get sad. I still feel the weight of missing out on things that I didn't get. But at the end of the day, I know that I have made the best with everything that has come my way, and I have absolutely no regrets. The thing I've learned is that new beginnings are the most unifying human experience there is. Every single person will go through them. Unfortunately, you cannot choose what happens to you, but you absolutely can choose what you do next. And actually, now that I think about it, I'd really like a chance to reintroduce myself. Hi, my name's Ashleigh Werner. I have qualified for 3 Olympic Games and been at the pinnacle of elite sport for over 10 years, and I have great time management skills. I made an NRLW team after only 4 games in New South Wales Cup, and then I overcame an injury so severe there was a chance I might not run again, to be stronger, faster, and more powerful than I was before. And I have lived one of the most amazing, beautiful, crazy lives because fortunately, I believe I'm a connoisseur of new beginnings. I'm currently starting a new beginning right now. I have absolutely no idea where it's going to take me, but I'm pretty excited to find out. Thank you so much.